Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing Season 3 of Narcos. Now, I've previously reviewed Season 1 and Season 2 of Narcos. I recommend you check those reviews out first, because a lot of my thoughts on those seasons still apply to this one, because it's mostly pretty similar. However, there are some new things which I'm going to be talking about in this review, obviously. With the end of Season 2, Pablo Escobar is killed. A new threat rises to take his place, that being the Cali Cartel. So this season details the efforts of the DEA to bring down the Cali Cartel, specifically the four godfathers of the cartel, Gilberto and Miguel Rodriguez, who are brothers. And then you also have Pacho and Chepe. And apologies if I butchered any of those pronunciations. So between these four people, there's quite a lot of big targets for the DA to go after. And they serve as the main villains for this season. In the reviews of the previous seasons, I did praise Narcos for its portrayal of Pablo Escobar. However, when it comes to the villains in this season, none of them really reach the same sort of level of impact, I guess. None of the villains really rise up to replace Escobar as the main villain. There's not as much depth with them, particularly with Chepe. He doesn't really have much of a personal story. He's mostly just runs around killing people. Pacho at least has a bit of internal struggle at some point. See, because at the start of the series, at the start of the season, Gilberto Rodriguez announces that in 6 months' time, he's going to surrender himself and go legitimate, because he wants to get out of the business and retain a great deal of his money. There's a bit of a struggle for Pacho at one point, because he's not quite sure if he wants to follow through with this surrender deal that Gilberto has been organising. Pacho also has some personal beef with this other family, because they keep killing each other's friends and family or whatever. The Rodriguez brothers definitely take the spotlight for the main villains, but again, neither of them really have the same level of depth as Escobar had. Now, in terms of the heroes, we have a few little changes to the roster a bit. Now, Steve Murphy, who was one of the main characters and the narrator of the first two seasons, is not in this season. I believe he's moved back to America at this point. So Javier Pena takes over as the narrator and takes center stage as the main character. Now, joining him, there's a pair of American DEA agents, as well as a few little cameos from some of the characters from the previous season, like Colonel Martinez, who returns for a little bit. But overall, in terms of the heroes, it's mostly Javier Pena and his two DEA buddies. Pena continues to be quite an interesting and compelling character. In the second season, he actually kind of delved into some morally grey areas and started working with the cartel people to try and take down Escobar. And especially towards the start of this season, there's a lot of people who kind of hold this against him, and you can see that it's something that he clearly struggles with, that he went down such a dark path. In this season, he continues to have to kind of stick to that balance of doing what's right, while also doing some things which may be a little less right, but still for the right reasons. So it kind of continues that moral complexity. Without a doubt, though, the greatest addition to season 3 was Jorge. Now, this guy is a very interesting character. See, he starts out the series, he's working for the Cali Cartel as a security person. It's his job to identify threats to the cartel and stop them, as well as make sure that the Cali Godfathers are safe and protected. And this is demonstrated really early on when he spots someone who's trying to spy on the cartel and get pictures at one of their parties. Now, he's been working for the cartel for a little bit, and he wants to get out so he can start his own security business. Now, he asks one of his bosses if he can leave, and they tell him, no, we still need you. And he's promised that he can get out in 6 months' time. As the series progresses, however, things start to go really badly for the Cali Cartel, with the DEA managing to get some pretty good wins against them. And as these things start to happen, Jorge is forced to be confronted with some really nasty truths. One of his friends is at fault for Gilberto Rodriguez getting captured at some point. And there's this scene where Jorge has to watch his friend get murdered along with his entire family. Now, as a family man himself, this concerns Jorge greatly, and he starts trying to work to get out with his family. And he actually becomes a rat, giving information to the DEA. His whole story, him trying to work with the police while also still, appearing loyal, it's really handled well, I think. It's very suspenseful and keeps you on the edge of your seat. And overall, he's a very compelling character, I feel. And it kind of, again, with the questionable morals, his character arc kind of dives into that a bit more. And it explores, what is he willing to do to keep his family safe? There's this one scene in particular where he has to do something that's quite a bad act in order to protect his own skin and, by extension, his family. And it, clearly impacts him quite a bit. And yeah, overall, he's definitely, one of the best additions to the season. I'd say the best new character for season 3. The season does a pretty good job of having some very suspenseful scenes. There's a few scenes in particular I remember that were very, very suspenseful. So pretty early on, there's this scene where Jorge discovers that the cops are about to go into this office where the Cali Cartel's accountant is right now. And this accountant has got piles and piles of money on his desks right now. And Jorge tries to call him up and tells him to he's got to go now, he's got to, get out of there. And the accountant doesn't listen to him because he's a very stubborn man. So Jorge has to rush over go into the office, and he has to hide all of the money as the cops are showing up in the office outside. And I mean, it's a very suspenseful scene because you're kind of you're rooting for the cops to, go in there and find out what's going on, but that doesn't end up happening that way. Jorge ends up managing to successfully hide everything. But it was a really, really suspenseful scene. Just to see the cops come so close to, catching the accountant, who very, very important person to catch. So, overall, I quite liked this season as well. There's a lot of good stuff in this season, without a doubt. in particular, a lot of the stuff with Jorge and Javier Pena is still a very compelling character. But the villains were kind of a letdown after Escobar in the first two seasons. But I mean, it's kind of hard to replace such a well-developed villain when you have like 4 of them and half the time. Overall, though, if you like the first 2 seasons, I think you'll still like this season. It's very good, and I by no means think it's bad. I think it's great still. It's just that season 2 was so much better. If you haven't yet watched the show at all, I would again highly recommend it. It is a really good watch. This is my like 3rd video of praising this thing like heaps, but yeah, it's really good. It's just probably one of my favorite TV shows. Now, although there's only 3 seasons of Narcos, there is apparently 3 seasons of another show called Narcos Mexico. Now, from my understanding, this show was meant to follow on from Narcos. Apparently the first season of this Narcos Mexico was meant to be season 4, but they ended up making it its own show. So yeah, I've yet to watch that, but if that is the case, then I guess I'll have to watch it. So yeah, you can expect to probably see a review for that in the near future. So yeah, overall, I do highly recommend Narcos. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.